Hello, hello, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for another legendary crafting session, where today we'll be rolling for plasma cutters. But we're also going to do something a little bit different. Before we go craft up the weapons and talk about them, I'm going to take a couple for a quick spin just to showcase the weapon a little bit. As always, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. With all that said, let's take a look at the weapon. The Plasma Cutter is a relatively new addition to Fallout 76, one that was added as a reward with the Steel Rain update, and honestly, it's a weapon I kind of brushed off when it came out. It seemed like kind of a cool novelty, but not ultimately all that great, especially before legendary crafting came along and it was really hard to get a legendary version of the weapon. So I kind of forgot about it. But earlier today, I remembered that it existed, crafted one up, and ran with it for a while, and you know what? It kind of grew on me. So let's take a look at it a little more. To start, there are 3 mods for the weapon which you can buy at Vault 79 for 200 gold bullion each. So they're not terrifically expensive, which is nice. It's 3 different blades, a cryo blade, flaming, and shock. Each of these mods adds to the base damage of the weapon and converts its secondary damage to one of those elements. The mods also add a cool visual effect to the weapon itself while you're carrying it, and to the enemies you hit it with. Ultimately, I found each of the mods to be about the same in terms of effectiveness for general use, and while technically doing more base damage than the basic blade, I didn't notice a ton of real-world difference. So if you don't have the gold bullion to make an upgrade, don't sweat it, it's still pretty fun to play with, even without those mods. What I liked about the weapon was that there was some attention to detail with it. The swing has a unique audio effect, and it changes depending on the mod you attach. The extra visual effects also added a fun element to using the weapon. All of those things made me like running with it. In fairness, it isn't some uber powerful meta weapon, so I probably won't use it all the time, but it's a fun change of pace that looks good, sounds good, and it's a unique weapon that was added to the actual game, not just a skin in the Atomic Shop. So, Plasma Cutter, I may have overlooked you when you were new, but I've found you now, and you're one of my favorites, at least for the moment. Now that we've taken a look at the weapon, let's head over to the Rusty Pick and roll some legendary effects. Alright, in our first roll of the day, we're going to do 3 stars, and that is an anti-armor with 40% more power attack damage and extra endurance. So the anti-armor effect I like. I don't love it as much as something like Bloodied, but I do like it. On melee weapons that tend to deal a lot of per hit damage, you maybe don't get quite as much mileage out of that in terms of the fact that you have elemental damage that's doing sort of half the damage this weapon does. The way anti-armor works is a little bit different there, so is this the most desirable effect here? I'm not sure. But the big thing here, extra power attack damage, that's great if you're into power attacks. Personally, I'd prefer to see something like swing speed. I still think that's the most important effect on any melee weapon. Extra endurance will give us a little bit of extra HP and maybe some disease resistance, supposedly, but I don't think we really get any mileage out of that. But one thing I do want to test here, I have had people tell me over the years that if you have the Martial Artist perk on, that there's not much consequence to having a faster swing speed melee weapon, that you get diminishing returns, if you will. So let's just test that out real quick. I've got a Vampires with swing speed already, and we've got our one without one here. So let's just pull them out and test them. This one is the Vampires. Let's just go ahead and swing this one around and see what it looks like. We're not going to do a frame count or anything. I think it's going to be pretty obvious here. We've got a very comfortable swing speed with that. It's a medium swing weapon, but with Martial Artist and swing speed, that's what it looks like. Now here's our anti-armor without swing speed. And I'm mashing my trigger as fast as I can, and I don't think we need to count frames or do anything crazy here. It's pretty obvious. Faster swing speed pays off big time on this weapon, and on a melee weapon, that really, really matters. So yeah, once again, swing speed, probably the most important effect on a melee weapon. Let's keep going. And next up, we've got another Vampires, this one with 25% damage while standing still and extra endurance. So The Vampire's effect on melee weapons with swing speed, if you're hitting your enemies a lot, it can be useful, it can be good. It's certainly not as good as you would find it to be on an automatic gun, but it's not bad. It's not a bad effect at all. If you don't have another great legendary effect that gives you a ton of damage, then that extra survivability can be useful, especially if you're in close quarters or not sneaking. The extra damage while standing still, I know there's a name for that for weapons and it's not Sentinel, but it's basically the Sentinel's effect for weapons. I don't really like that on a melee weapon. I know my playstyle with melee, I'm moving around a lot. I can't really see too many scenarios where I'd be standing still and attacking with a melee weapon, so probably not a lot of mileage out of that one. Extra endurance, again, we know what that does. Kind of a letdown there. There's any number of better things we could get there. So Vampires is cool, but as we saw, I already have a Vampires with swing speed, so this one is certainly not going to beat that one out. Let's keep rolling and see what we can get on our third roll. We're going to do a total of 10 here. And you can see I've crafted them all up. I got lucky today and super duper processed on all of them, so that was perfect. And on this one, we've got Hunters with VATS critical hits doing more damage and 90% reduced weight. So the Hunter's effect, if you've seen my videos like these before, you know I'm not a big fan of Hunters. It gives you more damage to animals. Technically, I think it also does apply to the Scorch Beast Queen, so maybe you could use this for that. I don't know that this is really going to be a super effective boss weapon, but if you were going to use it there, I guess maybe you could put some work in with it, but I don't love it. Just kind of a very specialized effect that I don't really see anybody keeping an extra weapon around for. 90% reduced weight does make that easier, coming in at, about 1/10 of a pound. Makes it easier to hold on to this one. VATS critical hits doing more damage is interesting here, because up until fairly recently, you couldn't do VATS criticals with melee weapons. But with one of the more recent updates, they changed that, so now you can. I haven't modified my melee builds to focus on VATS criticals because I don't really use VATS for melee all that much, but maybe that's something worth trying. I'd be curious in the comments if you are a VATS critical melee build to hear your thoughts on how that works. So that could be really interesting. But unfortunately, I don't love the Hunter's effect. Let's keep moving. And we've got a Nocturnal with swing speed and again with endurance. It loves hitting me with the endurance today, doesn't it? So Nocturnal, not one of my favorite effects, but it's not nearly as bad as it once was. There's no more negative for using it during the day, so that helps. You do get a nice buff at night, which is solid. And you get faster swing speed. So with this weapon being a fairly lightweight weapon, especially with the right melee perks on, carrying a Nocturnal melee weapon around with you like this might not be the worst idea in the world. Just switch to it when it's nighttime and switch away from it in the day when you can use something else. It's got faster swing speed, which again, most important effect on a melee weapon. That's going to increase your DPS pretty much more than anything else because you're not counting on additive versus multiplicative damage there. You're just dealing more hits with your weapon, so that's fantastic. So overall, not bad. Would I like to see something other than Nocturnal? Sure, but swing speed is always good. If it's got swing speed, unless it's got something really terrible on it, it's going to be pretty good. Now we've got another Hunters, which we know I don't love. We replenish action points with each kill. I guess that's useful, especially if you're using VATS for melee. But if you're not, I don't know how useful that really is. Maybe if you're sprinting around a lot, maybe taking advantage of a Cavalier's armor set or something like that, then maybe that can be useful for you. Breaking 50% slower is definitely good. I am no fan of the grind. I am no fan of repairing weapons and curing diseases and eating food and all the tedious little button clicking that we have to do to maintain things in this game for really very little payoff, if any. But so anything that makes the weapon break slower, that kind of makes me happy, but overall, not in love with this one. Hunters is definitely a letdown. Replenishing action points could be cool for somebody, but probably not for me. Let's keep moving along. And now we've got a Gourmands with faster swing speed and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. So the Gourmands effect is not a bad effect. it's just not a great legendary effect. The Gourmand's effect falls into a place where it's really useful for somebody probably in earlier to mid levels where you maybe don't have a perfect build yet and you want to take advantage of some extra damage in a fairly easy way. Just keeping your thirst and hunger meters full effectively yields a 26% damage buff. So that's not too bad. Certainly doesn't compete with something like Junkies or Bloodied or probably even Anti-Armor, but it also doesn't require you to give up anything, so that's not a bad thing. 40% faster swing speed, again, most important effect on a melee weapon, so this one automatically is pretty good just because it has that. And then your VATS critical meter filling faster. That could be cool again here if you are taking advantage of those VATS criticals with your melee build. So not a bad roll, not a great roll once again. I don't love Gourmands, but if I had a level 50 melee character that wasn't perfect yet, I might get a little bit of mileage out of that. So it could be kind of cool. We've got a few to go yet. Let's see if we can land anything great. This one is decidedly not great. We've got Assassins with swing speed and faster VATS critical meter. We've talked about swing speed and VATS critical meter already, so we'll just leave that alone. The Assassin's effect gives us a bonus damage to humans. Not super useful. Most humans in Fallout 76 are super squishy, so you don't really need that buff. With that said, it's a lightweight weapon, so if you've got a melee build, maybe you hold on to it just for when you have a daily op where you're going up against Blood Eagles or something. Maybe you can get some mileage out of it that way. I think the communists also count as humans, but there's also ghouls and robots in there too, so maybe not amazing there, but overall, it's got swing speed, so if you don't have one with a better legendary effect than Assassins, well, okay, swing speed gives you a nice bonus. It's the most important one. But overall, not a huge fan of Assassins. Let's try again, see if we can land something better. This one is Furious with swing speed and less damage while power attacking. So here again, swing speed, love it, wonderful, great. 40% less damage while power attacking. It doesn't hurt, but I don't love that because the power attack is fairly quick. I don't know how much you really benefit from using that. With that said, if that was paired with additional power attack damage, well, now you have some interesting synergy. But that's not what we have here. We've got swing speed, so maybe you get some mileage out of that one, maybe you don't. The Furious effect on a melee weapon, not a huge fan of it. More often than not with melee weapons, your goal is to kill things very quickly. So if you're not killing things in 1 to maybe 3 shots during general farming, you're probably not going to keep using that melee weapon, which means the Furious effect that stacks damage over 5 hits or so is not really going to give you a whole lot of benefit. So maybe against bosses, but again, is this really the weapon you're using against bosses? Time will tell. And our next one is Ghoul Slayers with 25% damage while standing still and extra agility. So Ghoul Slayers here again. Ghouls are fairly squishy. Don't know how much you really need this, but again, maybe for that mid-level player who's leveling up, you're grinding Whitespring a lot, you're doing Radiation Rumble a lot, you're doing things to grind XP. Getting extra damage to ghouls could be useful, and this is a lightweight weapon, so it doesn't really hurt you to keep it around. Extra damage while standing still, again, don't love that. Don't really see the purpose of it on a melee weapon. Maybe I'm wrong. If you get mileage out of that, let me know in the comments how you use it. I think that's kind of an interesting play style if you do, so I'd like to hear about that. And extra agility, of course, will give us more AP. That's great if we are running around and sprinting a lot, if we are using VATS, if we're using a lot of power attacks. So a little extra AP doesn't hurt. But the big one here is it's Ghoul Slayers. It is situational, but it's a fairly common situation. So when we combine that with the fact that it's a lightweight weapon, this isn't that bad. And I think we've got one more. Let's see what we can do here. And our final roll of the day is Mutants with... We reflect 50% of melee damage back while blocking and extra strength. So I love the extra strength. That's going to give us extra carry weight and it gives us more damage, which is sweet. It's only a little bit more damage, but still, we take what we can get. Mutants is going to give us 5% more damage for each mutation, up to a total of 5. So maximum of 25% more damage, but when we pair that with extra strength, definitely is going to be a bit of an improvement there, probably totaling around, I don't know, 30% roughly back in the napkin math. The melee damage while blocking, yeah, if you've seen my other videos where we've talked about melee weapons, that's pointless. There's just no reason to be blocking in Fallout 76. I don't see that scenario as something that people are going to use, if for no other reason than the AI on the enemies in Fallout 76 is so bad that you can just kill them so much quicker than trying to fight and block. Their reaction time is slow. You're going to hit them 3 times with a weapon like this, even without faster swing speed, before they can really wind up and hit you back. So fairly useless effect there. Mutants in strength is good. Mutants not great, but not bad. Overall, we got some interesting ones to look at and play with here, but nothing that I think is probably going to take me away from my vampire swing speed plasma cutter that I already have. But still and yet, it's fun to craft them up and look at the different effects and see what we can do. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's video. So I appreciate you all watching, and I appreciate you all coming back around here after my lengthier than expected absence. I had a vacation, and then I came home sick, and it lasted longer than I thought. You can still probably hear it in my voice. I'm still not quite 100%, but I wanted to get back to some content creation here, get back into the swing of things, and I'm sure things will be much closer to normal within the next couple of weeks. So I do hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, remember, subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and specifically, let me know, did you like the whole little thing at the beginning where we took a quick look at the weapon? I don't think that's going to be appropriate for every one of these videos, but for something that's a weapon that maybe isn't as widely used or popular, that might be kind of cool to do. So let me know what you thought of that. With all that said, I do thank you again for watching. I wish you all a happy, healthy, and safe new year, and I hope I see you all next time.